From the Times and the Sunday Times, this is the story on Sunday. I'm Manveen Rana. Today, we take a look back at some of the incredible people we lost in 2025. There are so many, but we've chosen 4 from the worlds of culture, science and politics. And our guide is the Deputy Obituaries Editor of The Times, Anna Temkin.
People assume that working on the Times obituaries desk is gloomy, but actually that couldn't be further from the truth. In my day-to-day job, I hear remarkable stories of talent, hope, optimism, tenacity, humour and insight. And today, on this episode of The Story, you'll hear some of those remarkable life stories. The Times has a long history of publishing obituaries, and over the centuries, the paper has built a pretty impressive archive of what we call stock obits. Pieces that are written and researched in advance for figures in the public eye, so that when their deaths are announced, a record of their life and achievements is ready for publication. In fact, we have about 3,000 of them on file at any one time, and we're constantly updating them. There are, of course, times when someone dies unexpectedly and their obituary has to be written and turned around that same day. Fortunately, we have a team of experienced obituarists, all with different specialisms, who are ready for that challenge. There have been so many fascinating figures whose obits we've published over the last 12 months, covering all walks of life, from politics to film, sport to science, theatre to music and entertainment. Who can forget Ozzy Osbourne, the bat-eating, hell-raising frontman of Black Sabbath, who became an unlikely reality TV star?
I just want to say to you on behalf of the guys in Black Sabbath and myself, your support over the years has made it all possible for us to live a lifestyle we live. Thank you from the bottom of... I'm going off the rails on a crazy train.
Or Roberta Flack, the soul singer known for hits such as Killing Me Softly.
Strumming my pain with his fingers, singing my life with his words.
Or Sly Stone, the funk music icon who fronted the group Sly and the Family Stone.
I am everyday people.
In the acting world, we celebrated the lives of many leading lights on both sides of the Atlantic. From Gene Hackman, Val Kilmer, Robert Redford and Diane Keaton, to Prunella Scales, Dame Joan Plowright and Dame Patricia Routledge, who I'll be talking more about later in this episode.
It's my sister, Violet. The one with the sauna and the swimming pool and room for a pony.
We bid farewell to writers like Joanna Trollope, Sir Tom Stoppard and Frederick Forsyth, and sporting greats such as the boxer Ricky Hatton, the footballer Dennis Law, and the Formula One entrepreneur Eddie Jordan, he famously took a chance on a young Michael Schumacher. If Jordan was a legend in the world of F1, Giorgio Armani was a legend in the world of fashion.
The older you get, the more active you are, the younger you keep. Yeah, I mean, the secret is to do something that you love.
The Italian designer was remarkably industrious, building a brand worth billions and remaining chief executive and creative director of his company right up until his death at the age of 91. And speaking of those whose working life never ceased, a moment for Pope Francis, who was already 76 when he made history in 2013 as the first South American elected to lead the Roman Catholic Church. These are just some of the lives that have changed or influenced the world we live in. And today I've chosen 4 people, 4 giants in their fields, to reflect on the legacy they've left behind. Some of them stirred their fair share of controversy. And I think that's important to mention because humans, after all, are not infallible. And an obituary is not a hagiography or a eulogy. It's a short biography, an account of a life which may have been well lived in some respects, but less so in others. That said, it's pretty hard to find fault with the first of these giants.
For me, the exciting part was communication patterns of kissing, embracing, holding hands, patting, shaking the fist, swaggering, throwing rocks because they use objects as weapons as well as tools, learning other tool-using behaviors, realizing that these are passed from one generation to the next through observation and imitation, which is a definition of culture, learning that they share emotions like happiness, sadness, fear, grief, and all the time learning about their different personalities, as different from each other as we are.
Dame Jane Goodall, the world-renowned conservationist and expert on chimpanzees, whose work not only fundamentally changed our understanding of primates, but inspired a generation of women scientists. Jane Goodall became revered for her groundbreaking study of chimpanzees in Gombe Stream National Park, in what is now Tanzania. She began her research in 1960, when she was just 26, determined to observe the behaviour of chimps in the wild. The spot was so remote that it could be reached only by boat, and her minimal equipment included a pair of old binoculars, a few tin plates, and some baked beans.
I waved goodbye to family, friends, and country, and set off on this amazing adventure. The first days at Gombe were very unreal. I can still remember the smell of it. I can still remember climbing up the first hillside and sitting there and hearing baboons bark, and just, how can this be me?
At the time, her only training was as a secretary in her hometown of Bournemouth. But ever since she was a girl, she had harboured a dream of going to Africa, living with animals, and writing books about them.
My mother had come because the authorities wouldn't allow me, to be on my own, and she volunteered. She was the one who boosted my morale and said, "Jane, you're actually learning more than you think, and you're seeing how the chimps go around in small groups, sometimes meet up, what they were eating. I was learning how they make nests at night, bending over the branches."
She would spend 15 years working in the thick forest of Gombe, often for days at a time alone, examining the chimps' habits and social structures. She followed her own instincts to win the animals' trust over time.
And it was sad that my mother left just before the breakthrough observation, that exciting day when I saw the one chimp who'd begun to lose his fear, David Greybeard, using grass stems as tools to fish for termites, picking leafy twigs and stripping off the leaves. And he was using and making tools, and at that time it was thought that only humans used and made tools.
It was an extraordinary observation because it challenged the definition of humans as the only species capable of making tools. When she cabled her mentor, Louis Leakey, to tell him of her discovery, he wrote back, "Now we must redefine tool, redefine man, or accept chimpanzees as humans."
My favourite memory of David is in the early days, he'd just begun to let me follow him. And on this occasion, I thought I'd lost him. I found him sitting looking back, and it looked as though he was waiting for me. And I sat near him and offered him a palm nut that was lying on the ground. And he turned his face away. So I put my hand closer. He turned, he looked directly into my eyes. He reached out, he took the nut, he dropped it, he didn't want it. But then he very gently squeezed my fingers, which is how chimpanzees reassure each other. And so it was perfect communication between him and me, using a way of communicating that predates human language. It was the first time that a chimpanzee reached out to make contact with me. And when you put this all together, then you realize there isn't a sharp line dividing us and the rest of the animal kingdom. And we're part of it. And we are not the only beings with personalities, minds capable of thinking, and above all, emotions.
By her later years, Goodall had achieved an almost saintly status as she travelled the globe, rallying support for conservation projects and urging others to protect the environment.
You hear this saying, we haven't inherited this planet from our parents, we borrowed it from our children. We've been stealing from our children. We're still stealing their future. Denying climate change is stealing the future of our children just to make money now. And I always ask people, think of your favorite tree. And when it began to grow, it was a little seed, but there's a magic. It's a life force in that little seed so powerful that those little roots to reach the water can work through rocks and eventually push them aside. That little shoot to reach the sunlight can work through cracks in a brick wall and eventually knock it down. So we see the rocks and the walls as all the problems, environmental and social, that we've inflicted on the planet. And the main message is every single individual makes a difference every single day. Hundreds and thousands of young people around the world can break through and can make this a better world for all living things.
At the start of her career, she had faced entrenched sexism, with male peers remarking on her, quote, lovely legs and long blonde hair, and not taking her unconventional research methods seriously. She was nicknamed the National Geographic cover girl. But through her dogged determination and extraordinary abilities as a primatologist, she blazed a trail for women in science.
In the place where I am now, I look back over my life. I look back at the world I've left behind. What message do I want to leave? I want to make sure that you all understand that each and every one of you has a role to play. You may not know it, you may not find it, but your life matters, and you are here for a reason. And I just hope that that reason will become apparent as you live through your life. I want you to know that whether or not you find that role that you're supposed to play, your life does matter, and that every single day you live, you make a difference in the world, and you get to choose the difference that you make. I want you to understand that we are part of the natural world, and even today, where the planet is dark, there still is hope.
Dame Jane Goodall was born on April 3rd, 1934. She died on October 1st, 2025, at the age of 91.
"25 years ago, I had a big choice to make, a big job to fill. I want to know all my options, so I enlisted the help of a distinguished former White House Chief of Staff and Secretary of Defense to lead my search for running mate. We talked over the various qualities I was looking for in a vice president: preparedness, mature judgment, rectitude, and loyalty. Above all, I wanted someone with the ability to step into the presidency without getting distracted by the ambition to seek it. After weeks of these meetings, I began to have a thought I could not shake. I realized the best choice for the vice president was the man sitting right in front of me.
Dick Cheney was the most powerful and most controversial US vice president in modern history. He'd once called the vice presidency a cruddy job, and previous holders of the post had described it as the most insignificant office ever invented.
Before I made my decision, he insisted on giving me a complete rundown of all the reasons I should not choose him. He also heard one of my top advisors was against the choice, so Dick invited him to make the case. As he did so, he sat there unfazed and expressionless. In the end, I trusted my judgment.
But when he accepted the role from George W. Bush in 2001, he had what he called a different understanding with the president. Because Cheney knew the Washington power game inside out. He had served as White House Chief of Staff for Gerald Ford, represented Wyoming in Congress, and been President Bush Sr.'s defense secretary, whereas Bush Jr. was a novice.
I remember my dad's words when I told him what I was planning. He said, "Son, you couldn't pick a better man."
Cheney stacked the new administration with his own people, integrated his staff with the president's staff, and secured access to every important meeting. And he ensured that key policy deliberations were routed through his office. He was an arch-conservative who persuaded Bush to invade Iraq and to incarcerate terrorist suspects in Guantanamo Bay while subjecting them to what most people would describe as torture.
Any regrets about going into Iraq?
No, it was the right thing to do then. I believed it then and I believe it now.
No apologies.
No apologies. We inherited a situation where there was no doubt in anybody's mind about the extent of Saddam's involvement in weapons of mass destruction. After 9/11, we were concerned about a follow-on attack that would involve not just airline tickets and box cutters as the weapons, but rather something far deadlier, perhaps even a nuclear weapon. Saddam Hussein had a track record that nearly everybody agreed to. We had an overwhelming vote of approval from the Congress, more votes for the action than we'd had in Desert Storm some 10 years before. Bill Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, numerous others spoke to the difficulties of the intelligence that all of us saw with respect to the threat that Saddam Hussein represented. It would have been irresponsible for us not to act.
He was revered by hardline Republicans and loathed by more moderate Americans. But Cheney cared nothing about popularity, only about history's verdict. He left office in 2009 with no regrets about the course he had taken, even though Iraq was in turmoil and the so-called war on terror has succeeded only in making the world seem less secure. His political thinking, of course, had been dramatically affected by 9/11, which took place in the first year of the Bush administration. In the aftermath, he declared, "There is no doubt that Saddam Hussein now has weapons of mass destruction. There is no doubt he is amassing them to use against our friends, against our allies, and against us." He claimed that the evidence of links between Saddam Hussein and al-Qaeda was overwhelming, and that US troops would be, quote, greeted as liberators. Though his assertions were later disproven, the fact that there had been no further terrorist attacks on US soil since 9/11 was, for Cheney, justification enough. Dick Cheney was born on January 30th, 1941. He died on November 3rd, 2025, at the age of 84. Coming up, two icons, one in the field of biology and another who needs no introduction.
No, you cannot have a number 24, nor a double portion of 37. This isn't the Chinese takeaway. This is a private, slimline white telephone with no connection whatsoever to any business or trade.
February the 28th, 1953. Modern biology can be divided in two by that date. The date on which the structure of DNA was discovered by James Watson and Francis Crick. Before, no one knew the mechanism by which children looked like their parents, or even why they looked like humans. Afterwards, at last, science had an answer to the most fundamental question of biology. How does life replicate itself? Watson, an American biologist, was only 25 at the time that he and Crick, his British research partner at Cambridge University, discovered that DNA had a three-dimensional double helix shape.
We both had the same basic interest. We wanted to know what genes were and what they did, on the one hand, and we thought that getting at the molecular structure would help. That's what we had in common. We had quite different backgrounds, but of course by that time, Jim had this much wider acquaintance with the genetic side of things.
We liked facts, or, we wanted to find out which facts were correct. We want the answer more than, proving that we were right yesterday.
The discovery would win them a Nobel Prize in 1962, but it would also open up a Pandora's box of ethical questions and controversies, especially when it emerged that not all of the evidence was their own. Watson and Crick had been in a race to discover the double helix with Maurice Wilkins and Rosalind Franklin, two scientists based at King's College London, and it transpired that their breakthrough discovery had relied on an X-ray photograph taken by Franklin, known as Photo 51. Watson himself was a complex character who would become equally famous for his shockingly inappropriate and offensive remarks as for his scientific genius. He notoriously speculated about a link between race and intelligence and wondered aloud if beauty not only could, but should, be genetically encouraged. He was also heavily criticised for suggesting that women should have the right to abort a fetus with a, quote, gay gene, although he argued his comment was taken out of context. Such remarks would eventually cost him his position at the lab in New York State, where he spent much of his career. He did acknowledge that his success had come as a consequence of a single-mindedness and arrogance that some found off-putting. "I knew many people, at least when I was young, who thought I was quite unbearable," he said. Certainly, James Watson alienated many who crossed his path. But few could deny the role he had played in helping to unlock the secret of life. James Watson was born on April 6, 1928. He died on November 6, 2025, at the age of 97.
I think acting is the physicalization of the imagination. You can have all these little ideas in here and see people and understand the way they behave, but if you can then, if the word becomes flesh in a way, then you are illuminating part of life for other people.
Although Patricia Routledge was a serious and intelligent actress, to the British public she will forever be Mrs. Hyacinth Bucket, or Bouquet as she pronounced it.
Oh no, there goes Daddy with my tuna mayonnaise. My God. Impulsive Daddy. I hope he's not going to drive at speeds incompatible with my cut glass condiment set. How inconsiderate of people to die at the weekend. Oh, it's you, Violet. It's my sister, Violet. You remember? The one with the large house, the sauna, and room for a pony. I wish you'd smile more when you're gardening, Richard. Well, you went past number 23 too fast. Far too fast. She had no opportunity to see my hat. I once caught Richard playing with a frisbee. He says it was one he'd found, but I've never been sure. Sometimes on sleepless nights, when my head's swimming with the responsibilities of organising another candlelight supper, sometimes I wonder, did he buy the frisbee?
The character she played in the hugely popular BBC sitcom Keeping Up Appearances was a hilarious, monstrous suburban snob who lorded it over her meek husband and her neighbours and sisters, one who had room for a pony and one who did not.
Rose, I hope you're wearing something sensible for this telephone call. Yes, it always makes me very nervous to think I might be talking to a miniskirt. Yes, I know you still have good legs, dear. I just wish you didn't wave them about so much. How fares the church worldwide, then, Vicar? For example, what is the missionary position in China these days?
The sitcom played for 5 years in the 1990s and attracted up to 13 million viewers. The Queen Mother was said to be one of its biggest fans.
Well, she leapt from the page to start with. Good comedy writing has rhythm and imagery, and you can see quite clearly what is the stuff of a character if it's really well written. She leapt from the page, and I thought, well, I wonder if I can knit her up. Getting a performance together to me seems like starting on a long walk, say on one of those open roads in Wiltshire, And you start on this walk, and there in the distance there is a tiny speck of a character, a person that you have an idea of in your imagination. And bit by bit, if the rehearsals are good, you come closer to each other. And if you manage to meet up, link arms, and go off in the same direction, then you're in business.
She had studied English at Liverpool University and afterwards started out as an assistant stage manager for the Liverpool Playhouse, but quickly moved out front to play small parts and then went on to train properly at the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School. Her range was wide. She did revue, Shakespeare, European classics, even some opera and musicals.
He stood and looked at me, and I was beautiful, for it was beautiful how he believed in me. His love was strong enough to...
Throughout the 70s, she worked mostly on stage, but it was on television that she did some of her finest work. In 1961, she appeared in early episodes of the soap opera Coronation Street as the cafe owner Sylvia Snape, and she was rarely off the small screen thereafter. She also became something of a muse to the playwright Alan Bennett and starred in several of his dramas, including his TV play A Woman of No Importance and his Talking Heads series of monologues for the BBC.
The fact that his work is microcosmic, he sees a world in a grain of sand. The rhythm of his writing, the comedy.
You've done so much with him. Does he find it easy to write for you?
I think he does now. He's written another series of Talking Heads.
Has he?
6. And he sent a little note with my monologue saying, "I'm sorry if you find there are echoes, but I can hear your voice."
Right.
So obviously, when you do get to know a performer as a writer, you do write easily for them.
She performed monologues too in Victoria Wood's sketch show called As Seen on TV in the mid-1980s, memorably playing a self-righteous spinster called Kitty from Cheadle.
Oh, well, I don't know where to start. I was in the cafeteria here, and a woman sat down with a prune yoghurt, and her speakers are fine, so I said, "What's that terrible smell?" She said, "It's my grief," and I said, "Well, it wants washing."
In one of the many letters Routledge received when she was playing Hyacinth Bucket, a viewer wrote to her about her ill health and unhappiness following her husband's death. She'd just come out of hospital in poor shape, she said, and then she'd put on the television, watched the appalling behaviour of Hyacinth Bucket, and felt better. For Routledge, it was both the justification and reward for her life's work. Dame Patricia Routledge was born on February the 7th, 1929. She died on October the 3rd, 2025, at the age of 96. I've always found that obits give food for thought, and that often there are lessons to be learnt from reading about the lives of others. So as we prepare for a new year, perhaps we should remember the words of Jane Goodall, who said, "You cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make." You can read more from the Times Obits team at thetimes.com, where we record extraordinary lives every day. And look out for our annual roundup of all the famous faces covered in the Times Obits pages this year. That will be live on the Times website from December the 27th.
That was Anna Temkin, Deputy Obituaries Editor of The Times. The producer and sound designer today was Dave Creasy. The executive producer was Kate Ford, and theme composition was by Mal Lassetto. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.